Reading practice from a book called You Can Trust the Communists to Be Communists. The book was written by Dr. Fred C. Schwarz. Reading Chapter 1 continued. Truth. The communists will invariably tell the truth, but it is the Marxist-Leninist truth. Those who believe that the communists will lie in the interest of communism are mistaken. In fact, it is not possible for a communist to lie in the interest of communism. By definition, if a statement in the interest of communism is the truth, by definition, if a statement is in the interest of communism, it is the truth. Jesting Pilate asked the question, what is truth? Christians believe that God is truth. Truth is a quality of God Himself. An absolute God created an absolute truth. Truth is. The communists affirm that this is nonsense. There is no God. There are no absolutes. Everything is relative. Truth itself is a relative of the class struggle. Lenin said, "The Communist Party is the mind, the conscience, and the moral of our epoch." Proletarian morality is determined by the exigencies of the class struggle. Truth is a weapon of the class war, and any statement that advances communist conquest is true. We can trust the communists to always say that which will advance communist conquest. We can trust them always to tell the Marxist-Leninist truth. Millions of dollars are being spent on the production of beautiful literature telling this truth. The truth, according to their literature, is simple. Where communism comes to power, everyone is happy, prosperous, and free. America, on the other hand, is the vilest, most evil, most degenerate nation the world has ever seen. An excellent example of the Marxist-Leninist truth is contained in a beautiful photographic magazine published in English by the communists in North Korea. Most of the magazine is given over to the portrayal of the radiant happiness and glorious prosperity of North Korea under communism. Towards the end, however, they present the picture of America on a page entitled "Massacre Committed by American Brutes." There are 6 photographs of bodies taken from the mass grave lying side by side upon the ground. Their relatives weep over them. Underneath is the following text. Mankind remembers the shocking atrocities of the Hitlerites perpetuated in the concentration camps in Majdanek and Auschwitz. Recently, another case of atrocities by American murderers which exceeds in its cruelty the atrocities by the Hitlerites was discovered in Korea, in a shaft of the Rakyun mine, Jangyun County, South Hwanghae Province. Some 800 dead bodies were discovered. During their temporary occupation of Jangyun County during the Korean War, the American murderers rounded up miners of the Rakyun mine and the peasants in the nearby villages and put them through severe torture. Then the American devils kicked the tortured miners and peasants into the shaft 100 meters deep. In the shaft, corpses were piled up on top of one another, and the torn pieces of the bodies bore bullet holes and scars made by bayonets. Mothers had their babies tied on their backs. The shaft presented a most gruesome scene. Honest-minded people cannot but hate and condemn the American imperialist murderers whose lust for blood knows no end. Funeral services for the murdered took place in the Rakyung mine in the midst of children's crying for their lost fathers, old women wailing over their dead sons. The people's enmity and curses upon the American devils rent the air. Avenge us of the American imperialists! This was the cry of the 800 murdered. But even at the moment in South Korea, the American murderers are slaughtering our brothers and sisters. This we cannot tolerate. American cannibals, get out of Korea immediately. This is the Marxist-Leninist truth. The objective truth is, of course, quite different. When the communists retreated in North Korea, they took with them all the able-bodied personnel to serve as laborers. Those who could not stand the rigors of the northward journey, old men, women, pregnant women, very young children and babies, they massacred and buried in a mass grave if they belonged to the untrustworthy social classes. The advancing American troops time and again found mass graves filled with the bodies of those murdered by the communists. The communists merely disinterred one of their own mass graves and with moral indignation indicted America for it before the conscience of the world. Their moral indignation was real, not simulated. This is almost incomprehensible. Hitler worked on the principle: tell a lie, make it big, repeat it often, and the majority of the people will believe you. The communists have further developed this concept. Any lie that advances the communist conquest is, by definition, not a lie, but the Marxist-Leninist truth. The maturity of a communist can be judged by the extent to which he can divorce himself from the evidence of his senses and totally identify himself with the verdict of the Communist Party. When confronted with a choice between the evidence of his eyes and the verdict of the Communist Party, the mature communist will believe with such conviction what the party has said that, were he given a lie detector test, he would pass it with flying colors. He would experience all the emotions associated with truth when he thought of the decision of the party. We are astounded when we see this evidence. An American plane was shot down over Soviet Armenia. The American forces recorded the conversation of the Russian pilots as they shot down the plane. When Mikoyan, visiting America, was confronted with the evidence, he was not confounded in the least. He did not believe it. It was not true. He was a communist, a Marxist-Leninist. The Communist Party had said that it did not happen, and the verdict of the party is the Marxist-Leninist truth. All communists do not attain this maturity. Many of them would possibly feel a slight element of doubt in such a situation. Final maturity is attained with the ability to identify one's emotions completely with the verdict of the party. Communist scientists finally derive their truth from the verdict of the Communist Party. Laboratory experimentation is secondary and must be interpreted in accordance with the policy outlined by the party. In the late 1940s, there arose in Russia a great debate in the realm of biology. It concerned the question of transmissibility of offspring of the characteristics acquired during the life of the parent. Most reputable biologists teach that such characteristics cannot be transmitted. The communists attribute this theory to Mendel and Morgan and call it Mendel-Morgan genetics. A Russian biologist, Michurin, developed a theory at variance with this. His theory was advocated by a plant breeder called Lysenko. The biological section of the Russian Academy of Sciences met to discuss this issue. The Foreign Languages Press of Moscow published a full report of the conference under the title Proceedings of the Academy of Science on the teaching of academician Lysenko. The verbatim speeches of the leading Russian scientists were published. Many of these, on the basis of their long laboratory experience, contended that Michurin-Lysenko school was in error. As scientists, they detailed the evidence on which they based their conclusions. The issue was resolved very simply. Near the end of the report, there is a chapter entitled Concluding Remarks of Academician L.D. Lysenko. He reports, "Comrades, the question is asked in a note handed to me. Has the Central Committee of the party adopted any position with regard to your report? I wish to state that the Central Committee of the Communist Party has read my report and has approved it." Prolonged ovation, great applause, all rise. A strange sequence ensues. The leading Russian scientists who had opposed the Lysenko position on the basis of their laboratory experience had a crisis revelation during the night. The following day they asked permission to make statements. When permission was granted, they rose and indicated that the error of their way had now been revealed to them. They repented of their former service to imperialist biology and dedicated themselves to the true proletarian biology. The cynic may say, this is easy to understand. They were scared. They know what would happen to them if they did not agree with the party line. However, the question goes deeper than that. They were scientists and they were communists. They were communists first and scientists second. As communists, they believed the Communist Party to be the mind of our epoch, the fountain of all truth. The verdict of the party must take precedence over the experiences of the senses, even in the scientific experiment. It may be argued that this situation no longer exists, that things have changed. Russian scientists do not all agree with Lysenko now. The question at issue is not the rightness or wrongness of the Lysenko theories, but the right of the Communist Party to determine scientific truth by edict. That situation has not changed. Russian scientists may have changed their views, but only because they have been permitted to do so by the party. Truth remains the exclusive province of the party.